Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome in to Two Guys, One Pod, Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Porter, joined by my co-host, Justin. We have gone through our Dynasty tight ends and our Dynasty quarterbacks pre-draft rankings. Now we get into the fun stuff. The wide receivers 1 through 10 are happening today. Are you ready to go?
Once again, I have arrived. I am now here. For those of you who are new to the podcast, I am the legendary ball knower, a.k.a. your favorite podcaster's favorite podcaster, a.k.a. Chev Sanders, a.k.a. Chev90 on the socials. And I'm here to talk about some of our top 10 Dynasty wide receivers. And this is a Hive Mind exclusive because we did not talk about this at all. And we'll get into some striking similarities that we may or may not have amongst all of these throughout these top 10 rankings.
All right, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off. Our consensus wide receiver 1 for dynasty purposes and most likely for redraft and keeper and all other formats is Jamar Chase. Shocker. The case for Chase is simple. Youngest Triple Crown winner. His situation hasn't changed. He's tied to his QB for at least the next 3 years. Yada, yada, yada. If you want Jefferson above him, I disagree. Argue with the wall. Peak year 3, Justin Jefferson had a few receptions more and less than 100 yards more on Chase. Chase had 9 more touchdowns. If he plays 17 games, Chase that is, he puts up double-digit touchdowns. We've lamented the Bengals not spending on defense and possibly overspending on their QB and wide receivers exclusively. This could be the most prolific passing offense for the next 3 years that we've ever seen not make the playoffs. We don't care about that. Chase Bank, play Chase, Chase Lounge. I don't care. Give me Jamar Chase as my wide receiver 1.
I love me some me.
It's not that simple. Let's not big brain this.
Yeah, there's no need to get cute here. We are talking about a singularity of a talent. I think we've said on the show before, with Jamar Chase, you are talking about a guy who has two of the top three fantasy scoring outputs by a wide receiver since the inception of the Sleeper app. 2 of the top 3. And would you like to guess where those finishes are in the top 3?
I'm guessing it's 1 and 2.
You are correct. You win a new car. So he's incredible. I mean, there's no equivocations. I was wondering if we may be headed down an Odell Beckham-esque path where we never get a full Jamar Chase experience. Like, we got robbed of Odell Beckham's prime, but it was never this good. So you're talking about a singularity of a talent. We're talking about a guy who is tied to a Hall of Fame trajectory quarterback. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory himself. All of Justin Jefferson's records that he has set for yards, touchdowns through his first 4 seasons, all that good stuff. Jamar Chase is nipping at the heels of all of those records. So on a per game basis, I mean, he's incredible. I mean, on any given week, he can give you 50 points. It's incredible. I don't know if you're going a different direction as far as this goes. I don't really know what you could possibly be looking at. I mean, a 32.9% air yard share of his team of his team's yards. You're talking about, I mean, he had 172 targets in 17 games this year, 26% target share, and that's all while sharing with T. Higgins, who was also on a career pace this year. So yeah, Jamar Chase, don't overthink. Don't overthink it. Don't big brain it. He is him. He reads from the book of Himothy. He dunks his face in cold water every morning and tells himself that he's better than everybody else. And I will accept no other arguments, as you said before.
At number 2, we both have Justin Jefferson at number 2.
I love me some me. I love me some me.
Just because Jamar Chase is number 1, like, it doesn't mean that Justin Jefferson is, like, he's down a peg. Like, he's still fantastic. In years where he plays more than 10 games, he finishes as a top 5 wide receiver. He's got multiple years of 150-plus targets. Like, awesome yards per catch, 14-plus every year of his career, no matter how many games he's played. He's caught at least 5 touchdowns every year. That seems like a low TD mark to be proud of, but considering the coaching changes, the QB changes, the missed time 2 years ago, it's impressive. Like, it's nothing to see here. Justin Jefferson handled Sam Darnold being his quarterback when we were all scared. He'll be just fine with J.J. McCarthy. He will get his. He also, like, when Jamar Chase is reading from the book of Himothy, like, Justin Jefferson isn't reading over his shoulder. Like, they're side by side. It's just Jamar Chase isn't sharing the book.
Yeah, it's not a knock on Justin Jefferson at all. It's just that his name is not Jamar Chase. Like, if Jamar Chase didn't exist, we would talk about how incredible Justin Jefferson is. It's just Jamar Chase is number 1, and we can't. And his quarterback situation is unquestionable. So even though Justin Jefferson is quarterback proof, Jamar Chase might actually get a boost from how good his quarterback is. Would you agree with that?
Yes, exactly. That's a point that I wanted to make. The quarterback stability and the quarterback upside is a definitive plus for Chase. Like, a receiver going for the Triple Crown, you can't project. Like, yes, we both have Jamar Chase as our wide receiver 1. Projecting a wide receiver for the Triple Crown is not something you can do. It happens very rarely. I think it's only happened 4 times. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the this
So,
was the 4th time this year.
Exactly. So you can't project that style or that level of production, but it becomes a whole lot safer and a whole lot easier bet whenever your quarterback is Joe Burrow versus a second-year guy who didn't play a single snap in the NFL last year.
Correct. So yeah, that's our logic. You can go argue with a wall, or go into a Home Depot and try to argue with one of them, or just hold the person at Chick-fil-A hostage trying to talk about why we're wrong. But don't try to talk to us about it, because I don't have any interest in doing so.
At 3, we're consensus 1, 2 so far, and we're lockstep for these top 3 wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb,
I love me some me. I love me some me.
CeeDee Lamb. We have seen each of these top 3 wide receivers. I didn't really put this together. Like, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, if you look at the data, it's pretty easy to see. But each of the top 3 guys have finished at 1 overall once in the last 3 years. Like, over that time span, CD has had his fewest games played, fewest targets, fewest receptions, and fewest touchdowns this most recent year in 2024. He was still wide receiver 8, experiencing all of that. He was putting the team on his back once Cooper Rush took over in Week 9 from Dak's separated hamstring. His hamstring, he separated from the bone. No other pass catcher there makes me nervous in any way. I know they re-signed Kevontae Turpin. They signed a couple of running backs that are going to be useless, about to be replaced by Ashton Genty or a Marion Hampton, or they're going to spend up for a Caleb Johnson. I don't know. They're going to draft a running back. But I expect him to bounce back to 22 to 2023 levels of production as long as Dak stays healthy. We're running like red light, green light with Dak, like we discussed last episode about our Dynasty quarterback rankings. This is a green light year. And as long as Dak can stay away from injury, CD produces at a top 5 level. Even if Dak gets hurt, he's going to produce at a top 10 level. Like, this is just like Justin Jefferson light, but I hesitate to say Justin Jefferson light because it's not fully accurate. I think people would say that it's too much of a markdown. Like Justin Jefferson Light to me would be wide receiver 10 to 12, and he can still give you wide receiver 8 on limited games with Cooper Rush throwing him the ball for half the year. Like CeeDee Lamb is awesome. If you had him as your wide receiver 1, I would disagree with you. Like I said, argue with the wall, but I'm like, yeah, he was wide receiver 1 a year ago in 2023. So, like, I would understand the logic. I would just disagree with it.
We're a year removed from him being almost like just inacquirable from a dynasty perspective. We're a year removed from him being the dynasty wide receiver 1. I mean, how soon we forget when you're talking about a guy. We're talking about a guy that just, I mean, how do you even, there's not enough superlatives that you can give for a guy like CeeDee Lamb because of the fact that incredible. He's great after the catch. He's great at the catch point. He's great at running routes and creating separation. Just to add some color to the picture. That's what I've been working on. That's why I haven't been talking as much. Getting this situated the way that I want to. So his average separation score, which that's a PFF, fantasy points data special, like 0.086. That's ninth in the league, and that's with Dak Prescott. I mean, that's without Dak Prescott for most of these games. Against man coverage, he averages 2.36 yards per route run, and had a 26.7% win rate, which was, that's about eighth in the top 10 out of the top 10 guys that we'll go against. And this is, I mean, these were low water marks for him, and so we're not going to. We can't completely discount the fact that, hey, there's a chance. There's a strong chance that he could return to form and have another 180 targets. And we're talking about him as the wide receiver 1 again. Now, with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson healthy, do I think that and Joe Burrow throwing Jamar Chase the rock, do I think that happens? Probably not. But it's, 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns, I believe it was, is well within his range of outcomes. And it's not a crazy outlier to assume that he could do these things. So yeah, I'm locked in with him as the third. That's the tier for me. It's Jamar, it's Justin, it's CeeDee Lamb. Those are the golden goose of the position. And I can't, there's no separating them for me.
Agreed. I like how you say it's in the range of outcomes. I kind of laugh because I think people would push back on that, and then you go back and say, no, like it's in the range of outcomes because 2 years ago we saw him do it. Like your main pushback on ranking J.J. McCarthy above Michael Penix was we haven't even seen him on an NFL field yet. We have seen CeeDee Lamb put up wide receiver 1 on the stat line you just said less than 750 days ago. Okay, so like it is a very attainable thing for him. But I agree with you. There's a definite tier break. Before this next guy we talk about, our consensus 4. You have him at 4. I have him at 5. Malik Nabers.
I love me some me. I love me some me.
Go ahead and talk about Malik Nabers.
Okay. Well, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is just how anti Malik Nabers that I was last year. And it had more to do with the fact that he was tied to Daniel Jones than it did anything else. So let me just say that. And I was completely wrong. So we're talking about Malik Nabers. I mean, 15 games played, sets the record for, he's my number 1 cornerstone dynasty asset. If you haven't seen that video, it's on my Twitter somewhere, top 12 cornerstone dynasty assets. But he's my number 1 cornerstone guy because the volume, when you have an incredible player, you want to, if he doesn't have a great situation, you want to rely on incredible volume. So he was number 1 last year in target share at 34.9%. He was, I believe, 4th in unrealized air yards among wide receivers with over 870. I mean, he was targets per game. He was above Jamar Chase at 11.1 targets a game. And it's just, he set the rookie record for receptions by a receiver, say that 5 times fast. And I think this was more of a floor outcome than it was a ceiling. I I mean, we could really be pushing for 200 targets in this offense in the coming year. And I mean, that probably happens if you got Jameis. I mean, the pushback is Russ can't throw the ball over the middle of the field, so that would limit him tremendously. So I would much rather have Jameis there. We've got to deal with Russ. Potentially they take a quarterback. But yeah, Malik Nabers is I admit I was wrong, and I admit that he's incredible, and I will take no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
I mean, you said it best. He set the rookie record for receptions for wide receiver in 15 games at 170, and he was receiving those targets from the very inept law firm of Jones, DeVito, and Locke. All right. If the quarterback is Russ, I think he'll be great. I think he'll be a top 5 wide receiver. If the quarterback is Jameis, I think he will be wide receiver 1. Full stop. The only reason I do not have him as my dynasty wide receiver 1 is because I do not know who his quarterback will be for the next 3 to 5 years. If I knew that if they had locked Jameis up, or if they knew they were gonna, I don't know, like if they had some long-term deal and all they needed was Malik Nabers, not the other way around where he needs a quarterback, I'm fine with that. He's a Spider-Man type talent at wide receiver. His ability after the catch is insane. His ability to go up and high point the ball, his ball skills are fantastic. I don't want to say that again. But he looked awesome coming out of college. He looked awesome on a bad. Hey, we're gonna push past that really quick. All right. He looked awesome coming out of college. He looked awesome on a bad team. The offensive line looks healthy to start camp whenever they do start camp. And whatever you think about Russ and Jameis, either will be the best quarterback this team has had in 6 years. I love these top 5 wide receivers and the ceilings they have. I don't think anyone past this point, and we haven't talked about my number 4 wide receiver yet, and I'll reiterate this then. But after my top 5 wide receivers, I don't see anybody with the ceiling to elevate to wide receiver 1, like to have that outlier season. And to me, with either of these guys at quarterback, I do see that outlier season available for Malik Nabers. There's a reason he's at 5 and not at 1. Like, yeah, it's probably not in the median range of outcomes, but the skill level, the opportunity that he saw in his rookie year, and the change at quarterback specifically, and also the change at the offensive line, to have an outlier year there would not shock me. And to me, he's the last guy in this list that has the ability to get up there.
I'll push back, but I'll push back later in the list.
Some of these guys yet, but you know, we can talk about the rest of these guys, and then you can say you can point out which ones you think can elevate to that point. How about that?
Absolutely, let's go.
All right, at 5 we've got our wide receiver 5 consensus, and this is because of me. Brian Thomas Jr.
I love me some me. I love me some me.
You have him at 7. I have him at 4. So I'll just go ahead and take the floor, and you can tell me why I'm wrong. I wanted to be hot takey. I wanted to have Brian Thomas Jr. above CeeDee Lamb. I couldn't do it. Okay, exceptional year with a wide receiver 4 end of season ranking. But I mean, he didn't gain the consistency until Mac Jones was a full-time starter as his QB. Mac started playing 100% of snaps in week 10, and he played terribly for the first 2 weeks. Then you get a bye week, and he played for 6. Then he picked it up for the last 6 games. Excuse me. If you take Brian Thomas Jr.'s 17-game pace from week 10 on, so you're taking on those 2 games where Mac Jones played terribly, you get 170 targets, 111 receptions, 1,460 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That stat line would have been good enough for wide receiver 2 in 2024, wide receiver 4 in 2023, and wide receiver 4 in 2022. I don't think that it's crazy to project that across, because we had 8 games of it. We have a new offensive coordinator in Liam Cohen, who I think is more than competent, and he will know. They hyper targeted Mike Evans when he was on the field. He knows how to make passing or receiving options valuable on the field. I love Brian Thomas Jr. moving forward, as he is my 5th guy. He's the 5th guy who I think could elevate to being wide receiver 1.
Beautifully said. I mean, this is just this is awesome. So you saw him as a traits guy initially. That's what most people viewed him as. Is like the big, strong, fast guy, 6'3", 209, goes to the combine, runs a 4.33, then shows up in Jacksonville, starts just dominating off the rip. And I don't know if you remember, but I was like, hey, we should leave some room for cream here for Brian Thomas Jr. No Diddy. Goodness gracious.
Yeesh. Move on.
Whoa. We should leave ourselves room for error. I'll say that, and I'm gonna cut all that out. So
no, you're not allowed.
Fine. So with
honestly,
Brian
I've
Thomas
never
Jr.
heard that phrase before. Is that what that means?
What, room for
We're
cream?
gonna leave room for error.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave room for cream.
Yeah. But then it got real diddlerish real quick. I'll say that.
I've never heard that before in my life.
It's fine. You learn something new every day. I'll put a wrinkle on your brain.
Just don't put any cream there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
How do we recover from this? Oh, so Brian Thomas Jr.
Quickly. We recover quickly.
So Brian Thomas Jr. just to add some context, we said, hey, if he immediately steps into Calvin Ridley's role, and he's what he portends to be as a 6'3", 210-pound receiver, there's a really, really high ceiling for this, and he jumped above what we thought was possible. So I don't fault you at all for having him wide receiver 5. I went a little bit more safe with my wide receiver 5, but in all honesty, at Brian Thomas Jr. at 22 years old, I don't think that there's any reason why, if he's going to get the Chris Godwin treatment in Liam Cohen's offense, if he's gonna be more like Mike Evans in Liam Cohen's offense. I mean, Trevor Lawrence supported Christian Kirk to a wide receiver 11 season in 2023 or 2022. So there's no reason to think that that's out of the like that. Him being lined up in the slot is out of the question. So yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver 5, I have no problems with. I just went a little bit safer in my rankings. And so there's a couple of guys who've done it for a little bit longer that I need to see that I think might have a little bit more stability so yeah, he's incredible. Full stop. I won't make an argument against him at wide receiver 5 by any stretch of the imagination because he's incredible.
Just for clarification, he's my wide receiver 4. He's ahead of Malik Nabers to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
consensus wide receiver 5, but yeah.
Consensus wide receiver 5. You were talking to the listeners. I understand now that I said that out of my face, but we can move on. We've got these two guys ranked back to back. Both are a 6 average for us. You have Puka Nacua at 5. I have him at 7. We both have Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver 6 for our Dynasty rankings. Let's talk about them together because I think that they weigh differently in people's minds, even though we have them ranked very similarly. I'll go ahead and start off with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I love me some me.
He's got an offense problem. Over the last 3 years, St. Brown has finished wide receiver 3, and wide receiver 8, depending on scoring format. In that span, he has not had a year with less than 140 targets, less than 106 receptions, less than 1,160 yards, or less than 6 touchdowns. Extreme consistency. His upside is capped because he's playing with 2 stud talents at running back, a field stretcher with slot hands, and a rookie, not a rookie tight end, but a very young tight end that would be tight end 1 if he got 120 targets. This offense is just an embarrassment of riches. He's still the number 1 pass catching option, but there'll be weeks when his services are just not needed. Look at weeks 1, 6, and 8 from 2024. He had 6 or fewer targets in all of those weeks. Those games, all wins, including an absolute drubbing of the Cowboys in week 8. He's awesome, and given more volume, I could see him jumping to wide receiver 5 to 4 consistently. But what I don't see is that happening outside of catastrophic injury to the other pieces here.
That's yeah. I mean, that's why he's here for me. I mean, I've been the guy banging the drum saying that he should be in the elite tier. But with the shift that occurred this year, I can't. I had to bump him down a little bit. It was weird for me because he's 25 years old. He's got the contract. He's got the quarterback. The continuity should be there. And again, 140 targets is a lock for wide receiver one volume, but that's not going to get you to wide receiver one overall when you primarily line up in the slot. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has, I want to say this was his career high in red zone targets. I want to make sure that I didn't screw that up. Give me my targets, guy. That's what I want. I want to. Yeah. So only 13 routes in the red zone. I want to make sure. But anyway, I think that, he had a double-digit touchdown season again this year, coming off of his first team All-Pro season. So, the ceiling now appears slightly limited. It's not the ceiling of the first four guys that we discussed, and it's likely that Brian Thomas Jr. surpasses him this year with another year under his belt to get acclimated to the NFL. So I'm fine with him here. He's still a guy that you can build around as your wide receiver one. Don't hear what we're not saying. It's just that he's a lower tier than the guys that we've already discussed.
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's only one CeeDee Lamb. There's only one Justin Jefferson. There's only one Jamar Chase. Like if you're having a startup draft or basically in your startup drafts, only one person is going to get those guys. So is this a tier down? Yes. Does that mean Amon-Ra St. Brown is not a top 8 wide receiver for the next 3 to 5 years? No. He's still very good, and you should take him pretty much. I would take him right there in those startup drafts. Like you said, don't hear what we're not saying. It's not like he is just significantly less than. It's just that those guys it is such a tier break in our minds between those and what Amon-Ra St. Brown currently represents. What are your current feelings on Puka Nacua?
Well, Puka Nacua was my wide receiver 4, bro.
I love me some me.
Or 5, excuse me. He was my wide receiver 5. Do you know why he's my wide receiver 5?
Why is that?
Because he plays with the Kingmaker and he's got an incredible offensive coordinator, and both of those guys are back in Los Angeles. Now, in the 9 games where Puka Nacua played at least 30% of the snaps, again, I just had to write all this up for my Cornerstone Dynasty Rankings on Player Profiler. 9 games where he played at least 30% of the snaps, 98 targets, 74 receptions, 945 yards, 4.07 yards per route run. 18.8 points per game, was second, amongst all wide receivers in 2024. So he's everything that you thought that he was. He breaks the record for receptions by a rookie that's since been broken by Malik Nabers, but he followed up that record-breaking season with another incredible season. So I feel like he's right there. He's right there with what could be a similar ceiling. We've seen Matthew Stafford have now 3 guys have record-breaking seasons on his resume, and just because Devontae Adams is there, I feel like Devontae Adams could play more of a Robert Woods role, and we could see Puka Nacua thrust into a role where like I said, 30% of the snaps, almost 11 targets a game, 74 receptions, 945 yards in 9 games. 9.
So just to, it's funny that you use that sample size to talk about, because I also use that sample size to come up with a 17-game projection. Do you want to hear that?
Go ahead.
I did. Again, it's odd that you would use that because we didn't talk about this at all. So he didn't play a full game until week 8. From that point on, not including week 18 because he sat because they already had their spot in the playoffs clinched, he paced for 173 targets, 128 receptions, 1,718 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's good enough for the same exact finishes that Brian Thomas Jr. projected for over the last 3 years that I talked about earlier. That sample also includes a week 9 where he left early and only played 35% of the snaps. So,
Yeah.
because we have not seen, like, guys can have outlier seasons in the touchdown department. There are some guys who are better than others at catching touchdowns. It is what it is. They have a higher odds to have those outlier seasons, a la Jamar Chase. The 2 years, we haven't seen that from Puka Nacua. And that is the only, no matter how you parse the data, he still only paces for between 5 to 7 touchdowns, even if you use his best weeks. So that is why I did not have him as one of the guys who could go nuclear up to wide receiver 1, just because of the touchdowns. The yardage should be there. Everything else should be fantastic. But that is the only reason I would push back on him being able to elevate to that wide receiver 1 position. But I understand everything else.
I mean, yeah, but this is the thing. Touchdowns aren't sticky. So while it's unlikely, it's not, you said it best. It's not out of the question. It's just we would place a lower percentage probability on him having an outlier touchdown season just based on what we've seen so far.
Yes, receiving touchdowns specifically are not sticky. However, Jamar Chase's lowest touchdown season is more than what Puka has done in each of his first 2 years. And I know that he missed the first 7 games of the season, but still, even with his awesome rookie year, where he did play 17 games, and he did set the rookie record at that point with 105 receptions, and he did put up almost 1,500 yards, he still only had 6 receiving touchdowns. So,
right.
If it happens, I'll be like, yeah, he's awesome at football. I could see it happening, but we haven't seen it yet, and that's my reasoning for having him a little bit lower.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it here, he only had 6 end zone targets. 6 end zone targets on those, in those 9 games, or excuse me, it's with him playing 11 total games, but only above 30% of the snaps in 9. He only had 6 end zone targets, so that's by far and away the least. Everyone else on this list has at least 10. So I understand it. I'm just saying things could change. So that's why I have him ranked more highly. It's a ridiculous in PPR. This is an auto select. I mean, he belonged in the first round last year when we were fading him for Cooper Kupp, and he belongs in the first round again this year.
Agreed. At our consensus wide receiver 8, you have him at 8. I have him at 8. He's above a certain player that we won't get to talk about either this episode or next episode, but near and dear to our hearts, Drake London.
I love me some me. I love me some me.
We talked about this in the previous Dynasty QB rankings episode. In his games played with Michael Penix, Drake London posted games with 8, 13, and 18 targets, a total of 352 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Is that good? I think that's pretty good. That sounds good. The reason we're not looking at, I personally not looking at a pace for London is that we as a show have decided that 4 games is the requisite needed for us to feel good about projections. If you give a 17-game pace on what that pace is out for, it's ridiculous. It breaks the spreadsheet. So, but it's easy to see. It was easy to see at the time that Penix became increasingly confident in not only the game speed, but in going to his guy. Increasing targets, completions, and yards each outing. I expect this to be a good, balanced offense, but I also expect London and Bijan to be the faces of the Atlanta Falcons for the next 3 years, the same way that Devonta Freeman and Julio Jones were the face of the Atlanta Falcons for their tenure there.
Yeah, second amongst this group in first read target share at 35.4%. I mean, second in end zone targets, fourth in end zone targets, behind only Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and one guy who we'll name later here. He was incredible. He had 25 end zone targets in total. Red zone targets in total, which was third in the league, in the entire league. I mean, this was the breakout. You and I made a bet on this, and you and I bet on two guys. We bet on Chris Olave, which got voided because he got hurt. He was never going to get close to this. And Drake London, who absolutely smashed this. So I have to. Here's the thing. I am willing to admit.
Here's the thing.
I am willing to admit when I made a mistake, and the mistake was made here, and I am correcting. And I will be an avid Drake London owner in all formats of fantasy football moving forward, because he's got the quarterback, he's got the play caller, they've got the pieces around him to support him, and he's a target hog. He had 159 targets in 17 games. So there's zero reason for me to fade him. I mean, he was third, I believe, in route win rate versus man coverage in 2024 at 40.8%. So, and he was seventh in dominator rating per player profiler stats. So I just think that this is, I mean, he's 24 years old. He's going to be 24 years old when the season starts. He's, like I said, there's everything points to him being in this conversation with room to slightly move up this list if he gets into that 1,500 yard range, or the touchdowns take a ginormous spike.
What do you view as the ceiling for Drake London for the next, let's say, 3 years?
I mean, wide receiver 3 to 5.
I would agree.
He could be. Yeah, he's just Brian. It could be very easily. We could be looking at going into 2026. This time next year, we could be very easily looking at Drake London as wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, 4, 5. Wide receiver 4, 5, 6 in Dynasty. He could surpass Amon-Ra St. Brown. He could surpass Puka in these ranks for me. He could be right there with Malik Nabers. Like, if Malik Nabers doesn't go supernova. So yeah, I can't, there's no reason to fade him at this point. And it would just be me being take locky and wanting to argue with people on the internet if I did so.
All right, at consensus number 9. Again, we had some mix-ups in the beginning. 1, 2, 3 we were lockstep together. 8, 9, 10. We are also lockstep. We have got Nico Collins consensus ranked at wide receiver 9.
I love me some me.
He was your call. I was just a little bit on the bandwagon. Why don't you go ahead and talk about your guy?
I mean, I've said it before. I've said it again and again and again. Even though I pegged this, I said it time and time again going into 2022. It took until 2023 when he got competent quarterback play. This is better than what I was just thinking. Maybe he would be a wide receiver 1. Now he is in the conversation of being a top 10 dynasty wide receiver, firmly in that conversation. We're having conversations, across the Twitterverse about him versus Puka. Now it's Puka for me, but Nico is no slouch. And given him 17 games this year, which that's another thing. You're never going to get 17 games out of him. He hasn't played 17 games yet. You could be looking at him in the same vein as Drake London. Like, we're going to get ridiculous target volume. He's big, strong, fast. He had 11 red zone targets, end zone targets, not red zone, end zone targets in 12 games. I mean, five end zone touchdowns, 5 targets in the end zone that resulted in touchdowns. And he was sixth in first read target share amongst this group of guys. So yeah, I mean, Nico Collins is every bit the alpha that you selected him to be. For me, on the dynasty teams where I have him, it's vaulted me from being like middle of the pack to a top tier team. in most instances. And in the dynasty, on the dynasty leagues where we sold him because we thought we might be getting out too early or getting out at the top, I regret it dearly. So Nico Collins is incredible. He's going to continue to be incredible. And that's where I stand. I mean, he's phenomenal.
So if you take, I agree with all points. I mean, he was wide receiver 1 until his hamstring injury, and then the offense that he came back to was not the same as when he left.
Right.
They get rid of, they don't get rid of, but they obviously don't re-sign Stephon Diggs with the injury. They're not going to have Tank Dell this year because of his catastrophic injury. So this year and most likely next year, as Tank Dell works back, should be peak usage for Nico Collins if he can stay healthy. I think it's a great point you bring up. He has not completed his season yet, and it's important to note because until that hamstring injury, he was wide receiver 1, and maybe you do use that to get out of Nico Collins if you could trade for a haul, trade for a good young player plus pick or plus picks. Would you consider that even though he's 26 right now?
You could, but you have to. He's almost, one of these guys where he might not. He's viewed as a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, but he's not viewed in the same vein. He's not viewed in the same vein as Brian Thomas because he's old. He's a little bit older. He's not viewed in the same vein as the first tier of guys that we started the show off with. So it's kind of a weird spot where you want to make sure that you're maximizing the return. And it's really difficult to do that because you can get a ransom, but I wouldn't feel great about moving him unless I got a king's ransom. You follow what I'm saying?
What? Yeah, for sure. Let me throw this at you. This is a for instance that is also real life. Would you trade Nico Collins and a late third for Ladd McConkey and a mid first?
Yes.
Okay. Would you trade Nico Collins and a third straight up for Ladd McConkey?
Oh. It would depend on how much I believe in Ladd. Because the problem
We won't get into that today. We'll get into that next episode, but
sure.
that's
I
think
you're the resident Ladd truther on the show, so I could see why you would do that. It's just that if Ladd doesn't take a step forward from a target perspective, we now become we now become victim to a lack of volume and reliant on his incredible efficiency, which again, he did everything that we've ever wanted from a wide receiver. He did everything we wanted to see from Garrett Wilson the last 3 years in his first year being in the NFL. Now,
that was the next name I wanted to bring up. Would you make the same trade, Nico Collins in a third for Garrett Wilson and a first?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And last for instance, Rashee Rice and a first coming back for Nico Collins in a third.
I would do that.
Okay. What if we
upped
it
to first makes it worth it.
I was about to say, what if we upped it to a second? Nico Collins and a second for okay, so you would not do that?
No. I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't be willing to even though Rashee Rice is right around, isn't going to be on our next show, I wouldn't the value gap between those two and the uncertainty surrounding Rashee Rice and the certainty I have with Nico, that first makes it worth it to take that chance. A second does not make it worth it to take that chance for me because it just doesn't have the portfolio value that a second does. Whatever. I said that backwards.
No. I was going the opposite way with it. I was saying Nico Collins and a second for Rashee Rice and a first coming back.
I could do that. The first, like I said, the separation in value between a first and a second, just looking at a first in a trade makes it, throwing a first in a trade makes people get real horned up because that's fantasy gold. Those are blue chip stocks, even though you're not going to hit on every first round pick. So
I think it's interesting to talk about that and see what's available because I would say 1 through 8 of these guys are unavailable. Would you agree?
For the most part, yes.
Like you would
Again,
have to pay
King's
through
ransom.
the nose to get these guys on your team.
King's ransom, yes.
Okay. And lastly here, kind of sad to have him here, Marvin Harrison Jr.
I love me some me. I love me some me.
This was a dud versus what we were expecting. His rookie year stat line was, quote unquote good for a rookie, but it's way less than what we expected for his caliber. It was a joke. Now, we have to find out if it's his fault or Kyler's or the offense in general. In 2019 and 2020, Kyler supported DeAndre Hopkins to 2 wide receiver 1 finishes. So, historically, I'm inclined to side with this being a scheme problem. But that same scheme is still there. And I would expect that scheme to be there for at least one more year after this year. I still think Marvin Harrison Jr. is who we thought he was. If you haven't seen the graphic that went viral post-season, he basically put up the exact same stat line that his dad put up as a rookie. And that turned out just fine.
Yes. Yes. Here's the thing. We were expecting Marvin Harrison Jr. to jump in and have a season like Malik Nabers just had. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Now, on a per target basis, it wasn't as good as what we were hoping for, but there's cause for hope. He was 7th in the league in deep targets with 28. Now, were those targets coming from Kyler Murray, and were they very good all the time? No. But amongst this group right here, he led in end zone targets and touchdowns. Well, he tied with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and in end zone targets that turned into touchdowns with 7. He was also 3rd amongst this group in end zone targets. So we're disappointed because they lined him up and said, go win, go run the big boy routes and win. Just lining up at X receiver. They didn't move him around the formation like we got from Brian Thomas Jr. in the second half of the season. They didn't pepper him with targets, much like a Drake London or a CeeDee Lamb or Malik Nabers. And we ended up disappointed because we were paying wide receiver 1 prices and expecting it to hit immediately. Right? So I look at this as a buy window.
That is exactly what I wanted to bring up. What do you think this is an actual buy window? Because I think that if you spent that 101, because you had to spend the 101 on Marvin Harrison Jr. If you spent the 101 on him, how white knuckles are you holding? Like what white knuckle grip? Like how firmly are you holding on to the value that he still represents to you? Like if you come with 2 firsts and let's just say good receiver from 2 firsts and then Xavier Worthy. Does that get you Marvin Harrison Jr.?
It should.
Okay, so let's walk it down. This year first and a 3rd this year, plus Xavier Worthy.
That could get it done, but it puts the probability at about 35% in my mind. The Marvin Harrison Jr. owner there is gonna him and Hall, and he is going to really be wondering if he's making the right decision. But 2 firsts, yeah, I gotta send it for that. Like again, we're getting to a point where rookie pick values are about to go through the roof because as close as we get to the NFL draft. So this is a buy window because we all expected him to be in the tier with Jamar and with CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. That's what we expected. And so because he was not that, people are saying, oh, well, it was Malik Nabers the whole time. I knew Malik Nabers was going to be better and blah, 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 blah. Sure you did. Absolutely. You were Nostradamus. you predicted that it was the right move to fade Marvin Harrison Jr. and you should probably be making millions of dollars because you're better than everybody else. So yeah, I think it's a buy window. I'm pulling up Dynasty Daddy right now. Right now, something that happened today. Marvin Harrison Jr. in a 2026 2 for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like
What?
these are real trades. Yes, these are real trades that are happening today. Marvin Harrison Jr. for Cedric Tillman and Breece Hall.
Oh my word!
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Wow,
for
I
Chris
thought
Olave
the
and Josh
price would be
Downs.
much for Chris Olave and Josh Downs. That one makes that makes no sense. What are
Correct.
you doing?
Right. In a
Like
in a
it was
super
1
flex.
year.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is that there's a lack of patience amongst the community, which is where you can gain a tremendous edge. It's just being willing to be patient. Like here we got 2 days ago, Marvin Harrison Jr. and the 2025 209 for Puka Nacua. Like
Okay, that one I'm not just torn up about.
I'm not, but
I
I'm
don't
just
think-
saying, like we based on the expectations that we had for Marvin Harrison Jr., we thought that would be, oh, that's crazy. You're not getting enough from Marvin Harrison Jr. or you're not getting enough. Like you're not, like there's no way I would trade. If you tried to trade someone Puka Nacua for Marvin Harrison Jr. before the season started last year, how do you think that would have gone?
You better be including like a first with Puka Nacua.
Exactly. So like the value is the values are all out of whack 3 days ago. And we'll get out of here. Yeah, we won't belabor what the dip in value on Marvin Harrison Jr. for too long, but Marvin Harrison Jr. and the 2025 211 for Breece Hall.
That is insanity.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. Good to discuss the trade values of these last two guys because the trade values for the first 8 would have been astronomical, and what most guys would not have, or most fantasy players would not have entertained even sending to people in their league. But we can go ahead, like you say, we need to get out of here. We can go ahead and recap our top 10 wide receivers. And just to recap, those were Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas Jr., Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Nico Collins, and Marvin Harrison Jr. As always, thank you all very much for listening, liking, down, subscribing, rating, reviewing, all that fun stuff. Whatever platform you do take in our content on, we would greatly appreciate if you could leave us a 5-star review. We are 2 Guys, 1 Pod FF on all socials. Thank you all very much for listening. Have a great night.
Y'all take care. And remember, don't panic because the guy didn't hit right when, just right off the bat as a rookie. Please.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.